The cake hit my face with a force that didn't match the laughter around me. For a split second, everything went white. Then blue. Then nothing felt steady anymore. Frosting filled my nose. Sugar burned my eyes. And somewhere beneath it all, I tasted blood. Rowan's hands were still on me when I fell. Not grabbing. Not helping. Pushing. People gasped, then laughed, the way they do when something feels awkward and they don't know where to place the blame. Someone said, "Wow." Someone else said, "Too hard." But no one said stop. Rowan laughed the loudest. It was sharp. Bright. Confident. Like she had landed a punch exactly where she meant to. Have you ever known, instantly, that something wasn't an accident, even when everyone else insisted it was? I remember the floor more than the faces. Cold tile against my cheek. The smell of vanilla and wine. A ringing in my ears that made voices sound far away, distorted, like I was underwater. Rowan hovered above me, still smiling. "Oh my God, Avery," she said, already performing concern. "It was just a joke. Just a joke." Those words had followed me my entire life. Someone helped me sit up. Another wiped frosting from my hair. I felt embarrassed before I felt hurt, which should have told me something. When you're trained long enough to minimize yourself, shame always arrives first. "You okay?" someone asked. I nodded, even though the room tilted when I did. I nodded because that's what I always did. Do you ever say you're fine just to make everyone else comfortable? Rowan pressed a napkin into my hand, her fingers cool, deliberate. Her eyes flicked briefly to the small smear of red on the white frosting. Just for a moment. Then she laughed again, softer this time, like she'd caught herself. "You're so dramatic," she whispered, close enough that only I could hear. The words slid into place easily, like they belonged there. That night, after the guests left and the plates were stacked, I drove home alone. Seattle's streets were quiet, slick with rain. The steering wheel felt colder than usual beneath my palms. My head throbbed in slow, heavy pulses. Each one landed at the base of my skull, blooming outward. I replayed the moment again and again. The push. The laughter. The way Rowan had angled the cake, not upward, not playfully, but forward, direct. But doubt followed every thought. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I leaned in too far. Maybe she didn't mean it. Have you ever argued against your own instincts just to keep the peace? I thought the worst part of my birthday was the laughter. The cake slammed into my face. The room spun. My sister smiled. Everyone called it a joke. I tried to believe them. But the next morning, an ER doctor stared at my X-ray. And quietly reached for the phone. Have you ever felt pain you were taught to ignore? I didn't know then what this moment would uncover. At home, I stood in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. Frosting still clung to my hairline. There was a faint bruise forming behind my ear, already darkening. I touched it lightly. Pain flared, sharp and precise. I told myself it would fade by morning. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it was shallow and broken. Every time I shifted, my head pulsed harder, like it was warning me not to ignore it. By dawn, the pain had changed. It wasn't dull anymore. It was focused. Intentional. Light hurt. Sound felt too loud. When I sat up, nausea rolled through me so fast I had to grip the edge of the bed. That was when fear finally spoke louder than habit. Still, I hesitated. Calling my mother felt impossible. I could already hear her voice. "You're overthinking this. You always do." Calling Rowan felt worse. So I dressed slowly, holding onto walls when the room swayed, and drove myself to the ER. Do you know how hard it is to ask for help when you've been taught not to need it? The hospital smelled like antiseptic and coffee. The nurse noticed the way I squinted at the lights, the way my steps faltered. She didn't laugh. She didn't minimize. She guided me into a room and asked simple questions. When did it happen? Did you lose consciousness? How did you get hurt? Saying the words out loud felt strange. My sister shoved a cake into my face. Even I heard how harmless it sounded. The paper gown crinkled as I sat on the table, my hands folded tightly in my lap. I felt small. Exposed. Like I was wasting everyone's time. Then Dr. Hanley walked in. He spoke gently. Asked me to follow his finger. To squeeze his hands. To touch my nose. I did, though the room kept drifting, like it didn't want to stay put. We'll get some scans, he said. Just to be safe. Safe. The word echoed longer than it should have. As the machine hummed around me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Rowan. About how often she had been nearby when I got hurt. About how quickly she always stepped in afterward, helpful, concerned, indispensable. I told myself that meant something good. I didn't know yet that it meant something else entirely. And I didn't know that the images forming on that screen were already rewriting my past. Because sometimes, the body remembers what the mind works hard to forget. The doctor didn't come back right away. Time stretched in that room, measured only by the soft beeping from somewhere down the hall and the way my head refused to stop aching. I watched the clock. Its second hand moved smoothly, confidently, unlike everything inside me. I told myself this was routine. A scan. A precaution. Nothing more. But something had shifted. Have you ever felt your body realize the truth before your mind allows it? When Dr. Hanley finally returned, he didn't stand by the door. He pulled a stool close and sat down in front of me. That alone made my chest tighten. He turned the screen slightly so I could see shapes I didn't understand. Pale lines. Dark shadows. Clean, clinical, unforgiving. Avery, he said quietly, you have a hairline fracture at the base of your skull. The words landed without sound at first. Like they passed straight through me. A fracture? I repeated, unsure if I'd heard correctly. He nodded. It's small. Not life-threatening. But it's real. Real. Not dramatic. Not exaggerated. Not imagined. My hands curled into the paper beneath me. Then he hesitated. There's always a pause before the truth that changes everything. There's something else, he continued, clicking to another image. Your left rib shows evidence of an older break. Based on the healing, it likely happened around 3 years ago. 3 years. The room tilted, not from dizziness this time, but from memory. The stairs. My foot slipping. Rowan's voice behind me. Careful, Avery. You're always so clumsy. I remembered sitting on the floor, breath knocked out of me, pain slicing through my side. Rowan kneeling beside me, pressing an ice pack against my ribs, whispering that I didn't need a doctor. That hospitals were expensive. That I'd be fine by morning. And I believed her. Did I believe her, or did I just want to? Dr. Hanley watched my face closely. Then he reached for the phone mounted on the wall. I need to report this, he said. It's mandatory. The click of the receiver sounded louder than it should have. Report. Mandatory. Words that didn't belong in family stories. Words I had never allowed near mine. When he hung up, he met my eyes with a steadiness that felt almost like protection. Someone did this to you, he said gently. The sentence echoed, looping again and again. Someone did this to you. I had spent years turning injuries into accidents. Turning patterns into coincidences. Turning fear into something manageable, something small enough to live with. Now, someone else had named it for what it was. A knock came at the door. A woman stepped inside, calm, composed, carrying a notebook like she'd done this many times before. Detective Carver, she said. I'm here to ask you a few questions. She didn't rush. She didn't accuse. She asked about the dinner. Who was there? Where my sister stood. Whether there had been alcohol. Whether I'd been injured before. Each question peeled back a layer I'd carefully arranged. Then she asked, has anyone ever discouraged you from seeking medical help after an injury? The answer rose immediately, before fear could stop it. Yes, I said. My sister. Every time. Detective Carver wrote something down, then looked up. And did you believe her reasons? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. What does belief mean when it's the only option you're given? Before I could answer, the door swung open. My mother's voice filled the room before her body did. Avery Lynn Dalton, what is going on? She stormed in, face tight with indignation, my stepfather close behind. Her eyes flicked to the detective, then back to me, sharp, assessing. A fracture, she scoffed. From a birthday joke? This is ridiculous. The old script slid into place effortlessly. You bruise easily, she continued. You've always been sensitive. Sensitive. The word pressed against something sore and tired inside me. Detective Carver stepped forward, calm but immovable. Mrs. Dalton, I need you to step outside. Your daughter is speaking with me privately. My mother stared at me then. Not with concern. With something closer to betrayal. As if the real offense wasn't what had been done to me, but that I was speaking at all. Have you ever been punished simply for telling the truth? For the first time, I didn't look away. I'm not confused, I said quietly. I want to continue. The room went still. When my mother was escorted out, something loosened in my chest. The air felt lighter. Quieter. Safer. Detective Carver sat again. We're going to request the restaurant's security footage, she said. And we'll speak to witnesses. For now, I need to ask, do you feel safe going home? The question stunned me. Safe. I had never been asked that before. I don't know, I admitted. She nodded, as if that answer made sense. Because sometimes, uncertainty is the first honest thing you're allowed to say. And I didn't yet realize how many truths were still waiting, quietly, patiently, for their turn to surface. The next 2 days moved strangely, like time had slowed out of courtesy. I stayed in my apartment with my Aunt Elise. She insisted on being there, cooking meals I barely touched, sitting quietly beside me when my thoughts grew too loud. She didn't ask questions. She didn't rush me. Her presence felt steady in a way I hadn't known I needed. Sometimes, safety arrives without explanation. Detective Carver called on the third morning. We reviewed the footage, she said. I closed my eyes as she spoke, already bracing myself. It was deliberate. The words settled into me, calm and final. She described what the cameras showed, Rowan adjusting her stance, angling the cake, glancing over her shoulder first. And after I fell, a moment so brief it could have been missed if you weren't looking for it. A smile. Not laughter. Not surprise. Satisfaction. Have you ever had a memory confirm something your heart already knew? There's more, Carver continued. We also obtained her phone. My pulse quickened. There are notes, she said. Dates. Patterns. Incidents that align with your injuries. And something labeled future. Future. The word felt sharp. She tracked when you'd be alone, Carver explained. Times when you were most vulnerable. This wasn't impulsive, Avery. It was organized. My aunt's hand rested against my back as I sat down, the strength leaving my legs all at once. Planned. Recorded. Repeated. Rowan hadn't just hurt me. She had managed me. We're proceeding with charges, Carver said. And we want to arrest her during a family gathering. I opened my eyes. Why? So there's no confusion, she replied. So no one can explain this away. The truth deserved witnesses. Sunday arrived faster than I expected. Elise drove. Neither of us spoke much. The familiar shape of my mother's house appeared at the end of the street, unchanged. Calm. Ordinary. Like nothing bad had ever happened there. Inside, Rowan was already laughing, glass in hand, completely at ease. When she saw me, her smile sharpened. Well, she said lightly. Look who survived. My mother frowned in my direction. Avery, please don't start. Start. As if I had ever been the one who did. The knock at the door cut through the room. Detective Carver entered with 2 officers. Her presence shifted the air immediately, controlled, purposeful. Rowan Dalton, she said clearly. You're under arrest. Chaos followed. My mother protested. My stepfather backed away, pale. Voices rose, collided, unraveled. Rowan laughed too loudly. You can't be serious. For what? A joke? For assault, Carver replied, and evidence indicating intent to cause future harm. Rowan's gaze snapped to me then. The mask slipped. You think you're better than me, she hissed. You think you deserve everything. Her words spilled faster, sharper. You were always weak. Everyone treated you like glass. I had to clean up after you. The room went silent. And in that silence, the truth stood fully exposed. The officers stepped in as Rowan lunged forward, rage replacing charm. You ruined everything the day you were born, she shouted. Her wrists were cuffed as she was led away, her voice breaking into something raw and unguarded. My mother didn't move. She didn't speak. Her face had gone pale, eyes wide, not with denial this time, but with realization. Sometimes, seeing the truth is its own kind of collapse. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. Rowan accepted a plea deal. Probation. Mandatory therapy. A strict order to stay away from me. It wasn't dramatic. It was precise. My mother began therapy, not to fix Rowan, but to confront herself. She told me that much in a halting phone call weeks later. I don't know how I didn't see it, she said. I did. I had seen it my whole life. The Victorian house became mine fully then. I spent mornings restoring it slowly, deliberately, repairing floors, opening windows, letting light return to places that had been closed off for too long. Each room felt like a decision. Each nail driven, a boundary. When I opened it as a quiet center for others carrying invisible family wounds, I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Peace. Not loud. Not triumphant. Just steady. Because survival doesn't always look like escape. Sometimes, it looks like clarity. The weeks after everything settled were quieter than I expected. No confrontations. No dramatic apologies. Just space. Rowan was gone from my life in a way that felt final, sealed by paperwork and distance and something deeper than either. The house stopped holding its breath. My phone stopped making me flinch. Silence no longer felt dangerous. Have you ever realized that peace isn't loud, just unfamiliar? The court proceedings were brief. Efficient. The evidence spoke without emotion, which somehow made it stronger. Dates. Footage. Notes written in Rowan's careful handwriting. Patterns laid out cleanly, undeniably. When the judge spoke, I felt nothing like victory. Only relief. Justice didn't roar. It exhaled. My mother sat through every hearing. She didn't look at me much. When she did, her expression wasn't anger anymore, it was something hollowed out, something trying to rearrange itself. After the final ruling, she called me. I've started therapy, she said. For myself. There was no request hidden in her voice. No demand for forgiveness. Just a statement. I don't expect anything from you, she added quietly. For the first time, neither did I. The Victorian house became my anchor. Room by room, I worked on it slowly. I sanded old wood until my arms ached. I replaced cracked panes, repainted walls, restored what had been neglected, not erased, just tended to. It felt symbolic, though I didn't need it to be. Some damage doesn't need grand gestures. It needs patience. In the afternoons, light spilled through tall windows, warming dust motes into motion. I learned the sound the floor made near the staircase. I learned which doors stuck and which opened easily. I learned that control didn't mean dominance, it meant choice. When I turned the house into a small meeting space, I didn't advertise loudly. I didn't need to. People found it anyway. They came with stories spoken carefully, as if afraid the words might break. Family wounds disguised as loyalty. Silence mistaken for strength. Pain that had been minimized so long it almost felt imaginary. Almost. I listened more than I spoke. Because healing doesn't require advice. It requires being believed. Sometimes, after everyone left, I sat alone in the main room and let the quiet wrap around me. I thought about the version of myself who had laughed off injuries. Who had nodded through discomfort. Who had accepted love that came with conditions. I didn't blame her. She survived the only way she knew how. But I no longer needed to live that way. Do you know the moment you stop explaining yourself? That was mine. My mother and I speak occasionally now. Carefully. Honestly. She doesn't defend Rowan anymore. She doesn't ask me to soften the truth. Some relationships don't heal fully. They redefine themselves. And that's enough. What stayed with me most wasn't the arrest or the evidence or even the confrontation. It was the realization that pain doesn't disappear just because we refuse to name it. But once named, it loses its power to control the story. I still have scars. Physical ones that ache when the weather changes. Emotional ones that surface unexpectedly, in laughter too loud or silences too long. But they don't own me. I do. If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's this: loyalty that demands silence isn't love. And strength isn't enduring harm, it's choosing yourself when no one else ever asked you to. Truth doesn't always destroy families. Sometimes, it saves the person who was quietly breaking inside one. And if any part of my story felt familiar to you, if you've ever been told you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too much, I hope you remember this. Your pain is real. And you're allowed to name it. If this story resonated with you and you want to hear more real, quiet stories of survival, truth, and self-respect, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one.